Yes, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the webinar series for Teachers Link. And today we're going to be talking about Business Studies Paper 2 for O-Levels and IGCSE. So let's talk about firstly the assessment objectives. Let's have a comparison. What paper 1 you're already done with. So paper 2, knowledge is only 30% here, right? So it does not mean that you don't have to go over the content or you need less of the content. It just means that you're going to be tested on less content, less concepts. For example, there are only 8 questions, so you're only going to be tested on 8 different topics. In paper 1, however, you are tested on 20 different topics because 5 parts of one question can all be from different chapters from different topics, whereas there are only 8 questions in paper 2. So there are only 8 concepts being tested. However, it is more critical to know the whole content because there's no choice, firstly. And secondly, if you don't know a concept, you might lose all 8 marks or you might lose all 12 marks. So it is extremely, extremely important. Second is application. So in application, you have 20 marks here. Sorry, 20% weightage here. It's the same as paper 1. So just be mindful that from those 80 marks, you're going to be getting a weightage of 20% is going to be through application. Then analysis is, of course, more. It's 30% as compared to 20% of paper 1. And why is that? Because you have longer answers. You need to be explaining them more. There are more marks given to analysis. So make sure you explain them in full detail. And then evaluation was 10 here because it was only in part E of every question, whereas here it's in all the 12-mark questions. Plus sometimes you get a question in 8 marks where you need to give your evaluation, but usually it's in part B. So there is a lot more room to evaluate your answer, and that could be, if you're at third strength, it could be a good thing for you. Otherwise, you have to practice evaluation. Okay, so you already know the breakup, that it's 8 marks and 12 marks question. Okay, so let's talk about the most common errors or how you can avoid those most common errors firstly. So how are you going to use application? Now, there are many, many different ways of doing that, but the most common ones and the simple ones are, firstly, you can mention about the size of the business for the small business, or you can also talk about how new or old the business is. Right? You can talk about it's been operating for 10 years, or since it is a new business. So if you just mention that, that's also application, whether it's a product or a service, if it's manufacturing or is it a retail business. So make sure you don't talk about cost of production for a service business. You talk about it in a service context. Or if it's a retailer, again, you're not doing any manufacturing. So there's no raw material involved. So kuch basic terms and okay, generally bache, they don't really think much about it if they write it. And that is leading to a wrong answer. So make sure you look into these things. And then what is the type of business organization? Again, you can talk about since XYZ is the sole trader, or if it's a public limited company, or it's a partnership. So you mention these things, and that is going to be also counted as application. Other than this, you can talk about the number of employees. You can talk about any type of market that it is operating in, competitive market, the competition it has, the kind of consumer it has, the kind of supplier it has, anything you can mention. Or the kind of raw materials you require, that also you can mention. But make sure for that, it has to be a manufacturing business. Now, if you just describe the point, that means if you start giving me definitions, what does leadership style mean? Democratic style means this. So majority of the times, a definition is not required, especially in the B part. So अगर आप उसकी definition देते हो, एक तो आपको लगता है मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा लिख दिया, आपकी space कम हो जाती है, and secondly time भी बहुत limited है कि अगर आपने time waste हुआ है तो it's quite likely कि आपका paper पूरा नहीं होगा. So make sure you do not start describing the content unless and until the question is asking for it, or you feel you want to make a connection for analysis. Otherwise, do not just give definitions. Then a recommendation or conclusion should justify. अब आपने उसको repeat नहीं करना. Do not repeat what is already said in the analysis at the top headings. Conclusion, if you're making a repetition, no more marks for you. And you also have to mention why the other options were rejected. If you do not mention that, again, you don't get full marks for conclusions. For example, there's option A, B, and C. So you say, okay, in conclusion, ki main baat kar rahi hu ki I recommend option A because of this reason. However, option B has this problem and option C has this problem. Until you do that, you do not get full marks. Okay. Now, another thing is that in the first heading, the second heading, if there are 2 headings, 3 headings, 4 headings, do not repeat the same application. For example, in the first heading, you said it's a sole trader. Okay. In the second heading, again, you mentioned it's a sole trader. You're not getting another mark for it. If you repeat the same example of application, that's still 1 mark. So be very mindful of that. Then uske baad aapka aa jata hai ki you have to, like, this is another way, this is a suggestion rather. So consider the consequences, implications that we do, ki kya advantages honge, kya disadvantages honge. Another thing that you can add is long-term consequences. You might also mention that even though in the short term, it might mean more expensive, but in the long run, it is going to be more profitable, or it's going to give a competitive edge. So you can mention it that way also, or you can also talk about the balance and issues. You can talk about, how advantageous it is as compared to the other. So in the recommendation and conclusion part, you can use these things. It also gives like a good impression. So long-term, short-term is also a good way to incorporate, is a good way to explain and analyze your conclusion and recommendation. And if you, mostly you do get like an appendix in your case study, and you just use those numbers without explaining what they mean, that's not application, and you don't get analysis marks. You do get application marks when you're using those numbers to calculate a ratio or a formula or something, but that's not analysis. For analysis, you need to tell me, or tell the examiner actually, that what does it mean? We're going to come to that also. Okay, so let's move on further. Now, for part A, sometimes you're asked for 4 factors. So that means from 8, out of those 8 marks, 4 marks are just for identification. And this is the easiest. Now, the common error there is that you tend to use points or factors, advantages, disadvantages that are overlapping, that probably mean the same thing. So be mindful of that. कि आपने उसको same points को use नहीं करना. Otherwise, it is the easiest kind of question to get, or usually 1 या 2 तो जरूरी आपको इसी तरह कहीं आएंगे कि जिसमें से 4 factors वो पूछेंगे. Now, the remaining 4 marks are for explanation. Now, you will only get that 1 extra mark for explanation if it is in context. Here, it says in context. What does that mean? Application. If you're just generally giving me a definition of what it means, or generally telling me how that is an advantage, how is that useful for the business, it's a 0. You might be writing excellent explanation, but if it is not in context, it is a 0. So please make sure you do not lose that 1 mark. Because है ही 1 mark. अगर उसमें application नहीं है, it is a 0. There's no 0.5. So it is either this or that. Now, when you are required 2 factors, you will get 2 marks for identifying the correct factor. Now, every factor will get 3 marks for explanation. So even if you don't do application there, so you can still get 2. Even if it's an excellent explanation, you will only get a maximum of 2. So a total of 3 on 4. So to get a 4 on 4, you must do application. Now, this is an extremely easy thing to do, but extremely forgetful task. I wonder why, but that's something that very good students also keep forgetting. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go over this question. Explain 4 reasons why effective communication between the owner and the employees in a business is important. So reason 1, to make sure instructions are understood. Okay, now if you look at the question first, there's no application needed here. So that makes it even simpler, even easier. Why effective communication between the owner? Which owner? Any owner, and employees in a business. In a business, it does not say ABC business or XYZ business. So it's just general, no application needed, which makes it easier to score. Now, this makes sure that the workers carry out the tasks they are supposed to. Okay, so when they understand, they can carry out the task. All right, understood? To ensure mistakes are not made. Workers need to ensure no mistakes are made. Now, we have a problem here. It's just a repetition of what this is in different words. And this is a very common error. You might think you've explained it, but you're using, ये तो बिल्कुल ही same word use करते हैं ना उसने mistakes. So अगर आप ये भी कहते हो to ensure that errors are not made, that's still the same thing. You have to explain if errors are not made, which would lead to efficiency of the business, that would mean less wastage of resources, less corrections to be made to the products being at hand, or the services being provided, jo bhi agar aapki situation hai uske accordingly. But this is technically nothing. You get a reason, 1 point here, but nothing here. To make sure employees carry out their tasks correctly, the employees may be skilled and well-trained, so customers are happy, but they still need to be told by Bethany what is required for customers. Now we can see here they've done application, which was not needed because they didn't read the question carefully. So technically उन्होंने काफी बुरी application की है. अगर application के marks होते तो उनको नहीं marks मिलते because उन्होंने सिर्फ owner का नाम use किया. So अच्छा है कि नहीं थे application के marks, so they're just kind of saved. Makes the employees more motivated if they know what is expected from them by the owner. They will feel valued by Bethany. Again, application which was not even well done. If she communicates effectively with them and want to work harder. Now, by looking at this, we can only know the name of the owner, nothing else about the business. So it's really not application. So if application marks were needed, it would have been like a 0 here and a 0 here. But luckily, this question did not require application, and that is why this person got a 7 on 8. Only there was the explanation for reason 2 was not well done. It was just a repetition of the reason itself, and that is why. और बाकी सब में उसको 2 on 2 मिले. So वहां पे अगर वो ठीक कर देते तो आपको 8 on 8 मिल सकते थे. And this was like the easiest kind of question. And if you get a question like that without application, identifying 4, please make sure that you do not repeat the same factor in different words. Explain it in detail. Give extra detail. There's no harm in doing that. But make sure you score an 8 on 8 on that. That's the easiest kind of 8. Okay, now let's have a look at another kind of question, which is asking for 2 factors. Now explain 2 possible reasons why Bethany wants the business to remain small. Now this requires application. Bethany wants the business to remain small. It's not like why an owner or why the owner might want the business to remain small. So definitely we are looking at application here. Now, first factor is to have better communication with her customers. Okay, 1 mark there. Being a small business, what kind of business it is? It's a small business. That's application. Allows Bethany, name of the owner is not application. So please be very careful. Name of the business does not mean you've done application. Being a small business allows Bethany to carry out treatments for customers, and this allows her to talk to her customers and have a good relationship with them. Okay, treatments. That's also application. Now we know okay, some kind of treatment is being offered. It's not a product. This friendly relationship means Bethany knows her customers well and can chat with them about what they want. Why does she want to communicate? Because she wants to have a good relationship, which will let her know what the consumer wants. Okay. This makes Bethany's job more enjoyable, and this personal relationship with customers encourages them to remain loyal to her spa and keep coming back. Now, without case study, now I know the owner is Bethany. It's a small business. They're offering treatments in the spa. And why does she want good communication? Because it will help her have good relationships, which will help her to know what the consumer wants, and that will help to encourage or to increase customers' loyalty. Keep coming back. That's customer loyalty. So that's a very good analysis over there. With application. So that's a 4 on 4. So I'm not asking, okay, why, what happened? So all of that is being answered here. So it's a very well-written answer. The other reason to take all her own decisions. Okay, 1 mark there. Now, Bethany started the business 10 years ago. Again, application. And has always made decisions about the spa without interference from others as she is a sole trader. More application. If she expanded the business, then she would probably need to have several other people invest and become owners. She will then have to listen to the views of others, and she may not agree with the direction of other people when the spa, the direction other people want the spa to take. Okay, and we understand why she does not want other people to be involved. If there are several other owners, then they may overrule decisions Bethany takes. So again, it's a very well-written analysis. We know exactly why she wants to take her own decisions, why she does not want to share, because they might want some other direction for the spa, and we have pretty good application. An 8 on 8. So it's really well done answer. These are the reasons why it's been given an 8 on 8. We've already discussed those. So this is something that you need to be achieving. Try to achieve that. I understand you might not be able to do it for all questions, but wherever you can, give it time, plan your answer in your head, and then write it with good explanation.